I'm not doing this. Alexander's voice was low, sharp, and dangerous. His shoes clicked against the marble floor as he paced the Reed estate's sitting room, the firelight throwing restless shadows across the walls. You are, Richard replied, folding his newspaper with deliberate calm. This family doesn't ask. We decide. Margaret, perched gracefully on the edge of a velvet chair, adjusted her pearls. She is a good woman, Alex. Gentle, steady, not the type who craves attention. That is precisely what you need. Alexander laughed. Harsh, humorless. A woman who won't even show her face? You want me to stand at the altar like a fool, marrying a ghost? You'll meet her tomorrow, Margaret said. Her voice left no room for argument. And you'll treat her with decency. He poured himself whiskey instead of replying, the glass clinking harder than necessary against the tray. Outside, the night air was heavy with rain. He thought he knew betrayal. He hadn't known it could wear pearls and speak with his mother's voice. The following evening, the estate was dressed for ceremony, yet silence weighed on every hallway. Alexander stood rigid in the drawing room when his mother entered with a woman by her side. She moved with poise, her head bowed beneath a veil of soft white gauze. Only strands of golden hair and eyes the color of steel skies peeked through. This is Claire Dawson, Margaret said smoothly. Claire, this is Alexander. Claire inclined her head. It's an honor, Mr. Reed. Alexander's jaw tightened. He didn't extend his hand, didn't smile. His eyes lingered on the veil like it was an offense. Claire did not flinch. The whispers began the next night, murmurs trailing through the gilded ballroom where chandeliers bathed everything in cold brilliance. Why does she hide her face? Is she sick? Scarred? This must be a debt repaid. At the altar, Alexander repeated his vows like a contract. Claire's voice, though quiet, was steady, untouched by hesitation. When told to kiss the bride, he pressed his lips to the edge of her veil. Formality, nothing more. Polite applause rippled through the room like a cough no one wanted to admit. At the reception, Alexander vanished to take calls while Claire sat at the long table, veiled and composed, answering every greeting with gentle politeness. Her silence was not weakness, it was dignity. Still, he ignored her. Later, when tradition forced them into the library together, Alexander snapped first. Are you going to keep hiding? What are you so ashamed of under there? I'm not here to play pretend, Claire answered quietly. You think marrying into this family is a prize you've earned? A poor girl who lucked into wealth. Her reply cut sharper than his anger. I never asked to be your wife. I never asked for repayment. And I certainly never asked for your love. For the first time, Alexander had no retort. Her calm was a wall he could not scale. The days after stretched into a quiet truce. They lived like shadows in the same house. Alexander buried himself in his company, coming home late, sleeping in his study. Claire moved through the estate like someone who belonged, not because she demanded it, but because she cared. She asked the staff about their families, remembered details, made them feel seen in ways their employer never had. Mrs. Carter, the cook, swore Claire's words alone healed her tired heart. Most of all, she cared for Margaret. Alexander noticed it one evening. The way Claire wrapped a shawl around his mother's shoulders, the way she adjusted cushions, the way she sat reading softly when Margaret's hands trembled too much to hold a book. He had never seen his mother smile so gently at anyone. One night, Alexander overheard their voices by the fire. You've already done more than I can repay, Margaret whispered. It isn't a debt, Claire replied. It makes me happy to see you well. Margaret's eyes glistened. 4 years ago, I should have died. Do you remember Beacon Street, Alex? That car? I lived because a young woman threw herself in front of it. She disappeared before I could thank her. But she bore the scar, not me. Alexander froze in the doorway. Claire's veil trembled. It was you, Margaret said softly, reaching for her hand. Claire's voice was almost a whisper. It doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. Alexander stepped into the room, his voice rough. It was you. Claire stood slowly. You should not have heard that. You saved my mother's life, he said, stunned. All this time, and you never said a word. Her fingers brushed the veil. The scar is not something people welcome. For the first time, Alexander saw her differently. He had mistaken dignity for mystery, restraint for weakness. He felt guilt coil in his chest. I thought you were hiding shame. You were hiding proof of your courage. In the days that followed, his gaze softened. He began to notice her, really notice. How she prepared his coffee just the way he liked it. How she folded his jacket without comment. How she moved with quiet strength, her presence steady even in silence. He began to wonder what else he had been blind to. The answer came late one night when he staggered into his office after a brutal day. Hunger and exhaustion blurred his vision until the world spun, and then he collapsed. When he woke, the fire burned low. A cool cloth lay across his forehead. A blanket was tucked around him. Claire sat beside him in the dark, still veiled, her hand resting lightly over his. "You're awake," she said softly, relief in her voice. His throat was dry. Why did you stay?" Claire's hand tightened slightly, though her eyes lowered. "Because you needed someone who wouldn't walk away." For the first time, Alexander Reed realized he had misjudged everything that mattered. And for the first time in years, he was afraid, not of duty, not of love, but of losing the woman he had never truly seen until now. "Because I know what it feels like to carry everything alone." Her voice was low, fragile, but it landed in Alexander's chest with the weight of a stone. She adjusted the damp cloth on his forehead, her hands steady, practiced, impossibly gentle. For the first time, he noticed how small her fingers were, how sure, as though she had been holding the world together long before he ever looked at her. "You didn't have to," he whispered hoarsely. "I know," Claire answered softly. When he woke the next morning, the dizziness was gone, but something else lingered, an unfamiliar calm. Near his desk sat a tray of toast, eggs, and coffee. On top of it lay a folded note, the handwriting delicate and even. "Please take today slower." Signed simply C. He held it longer than necessary, staring at the curve of the letters like they carried a secret. That night at dinner, Margaret Reed studied her son in silence until finally she set down her glass. "You look different," she said, her sharp blue eyes narrowing in quiet amusement. "Must be the fever," Alexander muttered. But Margaret only smiled faintly, the kind of smile that had unnerved CEOs in boardrooms for decades. "Or maybe," she said, "you're finally seeing what's right in front of you." He looked away, his voice low. "I don't know what it is, but I feel it." "Feel what?" "That I need her," he admitted. His fork stilled against the china. He didn't lift his gaze, but Margaret reached across the table, touching his hand. Words weren't necessary. For once, he had said the thing she had waited to hear his entire life. The house was silent that night, the kind of silence so deep it pressed against the walls. Alexander sat in the library, firelight flickering against his untouched glass of scotch. For once, he hadn't reached for his phone, hadn't drowned himself in numbers. He just sat there, thinking of her. Claire entered quietly, wrapped in a pale robe, her veil still in place. Her steps were soft, unhurried, as though she expected to find him awake. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He turned toward her. His voice was steady, but heavy. "Why do you still wear it?" She hesitated, fingers clasped in front of her. "I mean it," he said, leaning forward, searching her face through the fabric. "You've saved my mother. You've given this house more than I ever have. You've been more than I expected. So why hide? Do you think I'll see your scar and walk away?" Her breath caught. She sat slowly on the couch, staring into the flames before answering. "When I was younger, I believed in fairy tales. The kind where love saw past flaws, where scars meant nothing." Her voice thinned. "Then the accident happened. The scar was deep. I thought someone who loved me could see beyond it." She paused, gathering herself. "But when I finally showed him, someone I trusted, he looked at me like I'd turned into a stranger. He said he couldn't imagine waking up next to me every day. And then he left. The silence afterward was brutal." She clasped her hands tighter. "So I stopped letting people see me. I couldn't take that look again." Alexander's jaw tightened. "You thought I'd do the same." "I didn't know," Claire whispered. "You already resented me. I didn't want to give you another reason." Her voice trembled for the first time. "If you want to leave, I'll understand." He moved without thinking, crossing the room, lowering himself in front of her. Gently, he took her hands. She let him. "No one ever taught me," he said quietly, "that a scar could be beautiful. Not until I met you." The gala came weeks later, Alexander's idea, though he never admitted how much of it had been inspired by her. The Reed Foundation's ballroom glittered with chandeliers and strings of violins. Politicians, philanthropists, and business moguls filled the room, their laughter mingling with the sound of clinking glasses. But Alexander's attention never stayed with the donors for long. His eyes kept drifting to the entrance, searching for her. She hadn't promised she would come. She had only said, "You'll know when I'm ready." And then, as the evening reached its peak, the murmurs started. Heads turned. The crowd shifted. Silence rippled across the hall until it seemed even the chandeliers leaned closer to see. At the top of the staircase stood Claire Dawson, without her veil. She wore an emerald gown that shimmered with every step she took. Her golden hair was pinned elegantly, her posture strong. And her face, finally revealed, was luminous. On her left cheek, the scar traced a pale line from her cheekbone to her jaw. It didn't dim her beauty, it deepened it. She walked with her head high, her shoulders back, as if daring the world to look and finally see her. The crowd parted in stunned silence as she descended. Alexander met her at the bottom, his chest tight, his throat aching. She gave him the faintest smile, steady and sure. He reached for her hand. She placed hers in his. Together, they stepped onto the stage. He turned to the room, his voice carrying over the hush. "You all know the story of my mother. What you don't know is who saved her." She did. He lifted Claire's hand. "She ran into the street to push my mother out of the way. She was cut, scarred. And for years, she hid because she thought the world would see only her wound. But tonight," his voice broke for a second, but he pressed on. "Tonight, I want you to see what I see. Not a scar, but courage, strength, beauty." Gasps turned into silence, silence into thunderous applause. Not the polite kind reserved for speeches, but the raw, standing kind that shakes walls. Claire's eyes shone with tears. Alexander leaned closer, whispering only for her. "You didn't need to prove anything. But I'm proud of you." Her lips trembled into a smile. "This is the first time I've ever thought my scar was beautiful." He kissed her hand, and the room erupted again. Cameras flashed, but no one could capture the gravity of the moment. A scar becoming strength, a wound becoming wonder, a marriage once forced by obligation blooming into something real. From that night forward, they weren't just Alexander Reed, the CEO, and Claire Dawson, the mysterious bride. They became symbols of resilience, of love rewritten. The papers called her the woman behind the veil. Foundations called, magazines begged for interviews, but they did something greater than accept invitations. Together, they built something lasting. The Golden Scar Foundation was born, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people with physical trauma reclaim their lives. They funded surgeries for children, built mentorship programs for survivors, created communities where scars were not hidden, but honored. Claire stood on stages, her scar visible, speaking words that echoed through hearts. What breaks us can also remake us. Scars don't make us less. They make us more. Months later, in an interview broadcast nationwide, Alexander was asked the question everyone wanted answered. How did it feel, seeing your wife unveil herself for the first time? He didn't hesitate. I already thought she was beautiful, he said. But that night, I saw what made her extraordinary. My wife isn't brave despite her scar. She's brave because of it. That scar didn't take her beauty. It revealed it. He leaned forward, his gaze steady. Marrying her wasn't charity. It was the best decision I never knew I needed. Life after the gala was different. Their mornings were filled with quiet coffee and shared newspapers. Evenings echoed with soft laughter, garden walks, and the warmth of two people who had finally chosen each other. Sometimes Alexander caught himself watching Claire as she read by the fire, her scar catching the light, and he felt not sorrow but gratitude. One golden evening, they sat beneath the oak tree on the veranda. The air was still, the estate bathed in fading light. Claire rested her head on his shoulder, her face bare, unhidden. He brushed a lock of hair behind her ear and traced the faint line of her scar with reverence. Then he kissed it softly. "You don't have to hide anymore," he whispered. "The world will love you the way I do. Fully, without fear." Her eyes shimmered as she smiled. "I already feel loved," she murmured. "And that's more than I ever dreamed." The sun dipped lower, painting them in amber light. They sat in silence, not strangers bound by duty, but two souls who had discovered that sometimes the most beautiful parts of us are the ones we try hardest to hide. Scars didn't make them less. They made them whole. And love, finally, had seen it all.